Hey everyone, Aladdin's Castle here, and we are just 1 week away from the NA Continentals that is being hosted at the Disneyland Hotel Resort in Anaheim, California. This will be taking place on the weekend of January 10th through the 12th, and it is being hosted by Ravensburger, the creators of the Disney Lorcana card game. I've done a series already so far about which decks you guys should play for the upcoming event, and I'm going to touch on some rogue decks if I'm able to make some of these decks out before the Continentals go live. And I think some of these rogue decks have some potential, at least in catching people off guard, or if that is during the side events, if you want to play something fun and different, or even for your upcoming set championships. So today I'm going to be running Ruby, Steel, Lore Drain, Lore Gain. So this is something that I think some people also experimented with. They've been wanting this color combination to kind of just really succeed. I think the lack of draw power is definitely apparent with some wide board removal, unless you tech in some specific cards, but I think this could really catch a lot of people off guard. So road decks, for those who don't really know, are basically non-meta homebrew decks that kind of have like a unique build to them. They could definitely exploit the weaknesses in the current meta. So if there's certain cards that some decks are just weak to, you can kind of catch people off guard. So that's really the point. And majority of players prepare for like the top decks, you know, the Ruby Amethyst, the Ruby Sapphires, Amber Steels, all that. So you could really steal some games by just playing against those who are not expecting these type of decks. So why Ruby Steel? First off, in this version, there's a lot of different cards that gain lore. So there's a lot of cards that gain lore by challenging, such as like Calhoun or Super Goofy. And just being able to gain lore off Aladdin as well are just a couple cards that are just in the mix of just the lore gain attribute. Second, lore drain. There's a lot of cards in here that also take away the lore that your opponent is getting, such as Aladdin or even like Pirate's Life. So that's also fun too as well. Catch people off guard with that. And also the surprise factor. So going into these large events, most people, again, like I said, they are prepared for the main meta decks. They aren't expecting these type of decks to kind of go into the current competition of the main event, and that could really maybe frustrate somebody because they're not prepared for this, or they don't have experience with this color combination. So you could kind of get the advantage of playing something off meta. So we'll go ahead and start off with the deck. I'm going to go ahead with the 1-cost cards. We run 4 Mickey Mouse. He is the resist +1. What I like about him is that he's really great against like the steel matchups that have a lot of the songs. They're going to be playing stuff like Storm Rage On, Strength, well, maybe Strength depending. But a lot of the 2-cost cards that do 2 damage and all that. So it's a very resilient card. And there's also like a shift line that you could use later on the game with Mickey. Next, I run 4 Happy. Happy is your way to deal with some evasive cards. During your turn, this character gains evasive, so it's really strong with that aspect. And it could really threaten your opponent's Diablo if they're not on Cove, stuff like that. And he also synergizes with another card, which you'll see in a bit. And then the final 1-cost card you run is Robin Hood. Because we run the shift line is used there to kind of sing songs, and also really good against the steel mirror. On to the 2-cost, we have 4 Mr. Smee. Mr. Smee is great either on the play or on the draw. One of the best stats in the game, 3/3, quest for 2. Really puts a lot of pressure on, especially against decks like blue-red. That's just really slow. You want to open up with like a Smee versus like a Calhoun, so you could just kind of start questing for 2. Speaking of which, Calhoun, one of the best cards probably from Azurite Sea as well. She is a 3/2 but with resist 1, and during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, gain 2 lore. So this is very similar to cards like Super Goofy or Robin Hood, where you're just gaining lore. This is one of your cards that kind of get you that lore gain. It's so strong, especially against the aggro decks, decks that want to just turn sideways. This lets you catch up when you're on the draw, so that you could kind of challenge back, most likely keep Calhoun, and then still gain 2 lore out of it. And then we also run 4 Docks. Dock is one of your few ways to get your card advantage back to your hand. When you play this character, you may discard your hand and draw 2 cards, and it's a 1/3, and it's just a really nice card to fall back on if you are if you have no resources in hand, or if you're going against like an Emerald Steel discard deck. It's a great card to use as your last card. Then we are playing the Seven Dwarves Mine package. You're already running Happy, you're already running Doc. Seven Dwarves Mine just kind of is natural to kind of fit that into this playstyle. During your turn, the first time you move a character here, you may deal 1 damage to your chosen character. If the move character is a knight, deal 2 damage instead. So you run cards like Happy, Doc that are knights. So you could pretty much, let's say on turn 3, play a Dwarves Mine, and then turn 1 play Happy. Or you could set this up even earlier and kind of move this as well for the 2 cost power. Deal 2 damage with the knight characters. Take out Diablos if they're not in a cove. Take out Flynn Riders. Take out Piglets. A lot of annoying cards that are in the meta that the 2 damage is really effective. And even later in the game, like it helps with the trades later on because you have some characters that don't have a lot of strength, such as Super Goofy. And to ping a damage on somebody and then finishing it off with Super Goofy or Calhoun just to ensure that you get that extra lore is also really powerful. Next, one of my favorite cards in the game, at least character-wise, Aladdin. So for the 3 cost, when you play this character, each opponent loses a lore. It doesn't have the best stats, obviously, but it can help you in a pinch when you're going against those aggro decks. Sometimes a lot of the lore late in the game are just so like neck and neck. You just need Aladdin to kind of help prevent that extra lore from your opponent. There's a lot of games where it just comes down to like 1 or 2 lore. If somebody's trying to like top deck like a goat or a white rose or something along those lines, Aladdin could kind of set them back an extra turn. He's also there for the shift target, another favorite card of mine, so he's there for the theme for sure. Then we have 2 Petes. Pete is a card that I think is necessary in this meta. And this deck, I don't think I could really abuse it as much because I'd rather be playing characters on board that do stuff proactively. This one's kind of like matchup dependent. But Pete's still very good against, you know, the Ruby decks, Amethyst decks, Emerald decks that do run either hand discard or songs or, yeah, draw cards. So, I mean, Pete's good in those certain situations. Yeah, so I like him. He's at least a 2 of in every steel deck. But another card that I think is really, really powerful this format, Brawl. Brawl is your answer to all of the really great evasives that you can't hit in this deck outside of Happy or even just the Seven Dwarves package. You have cards like Genie, you have cards like Diablo, Tinkerbell if they're running the Amethyst, 3 costs, that's like Surfer Mini, Elsa, there's just Hiram. All these cards are great in their respective decks, and if you're able to tempo them out with Brawl, it could kind of just bring you back. And to the 4 cost, one of my other favorite cards in the game is Super Goofy. Super Goofy is a 2/4 with Rush. When this character challenges another character, gain 2 lore. There are so many times where you could win off this game. If you could just imagine Goat winning through questing and bouncing back, you know, back and forth, that's already 2 lore. Super Goofy is in a way essentially similar to Goat. Of course, Goat, you could just get on the spot. Super Goofy, you have to challenge something, so if they don't have a character exerted or if they have somebody evasive, of course it's not going to be as effective. But because of this meta and how some of the decks are just so aggro and they're just turning cards sideways, like green purple, amber steel aggro, stuff like that, if they're not careful, you're just going to catch them with a Super Goofy. Or even just like a Tamatoa, they think they're safe. Usually you're going to be out pacing red blue as well if you're opening up with like Smeeze and all these 2 lore characters. Towards the end they're just gonna be open because they're gonna be questing with their Hirams or Tamatoas and stuff, and you could just Super Goofy them for the win. So there are plenty of times that I've seen and even lost to Super Goofy. I'm running 1 Along Came Zeus. You could definitely up this up to 2, but it's really there for my answer against like Maui Shark. Maui Shark is so hard to get rid of in certain decks, outside of just like hard removal like Let It Go or Maleficent Dragon or B-Prep or something like that. So you need some really good answers against Maui Shark because they could just kind of get away with the game because of how hard it is to remove. So the 5 damage is really strong. It's also there against like Genies if you don't have enough evasives to get rid of that, or Brawls. It's a nice backup. I think you could sing it with Goofy if you want to as well. On to the 5 cost, I run 4 Robin Hoods. Robin Hood is your shift target. Again, this is really good against Steel. It's a 3/6. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in challenge, you gain 2 lore, so it fits the theme of lore gain. And then when this character is banished, you draw a card. So it's a very solid body. I know it's phased in and out of the meta, but it really depends on the matchup. And especially if you're running this deck that runs stuff like Whole New World, you need your shift targets for the draw power. Next is the new Mickey Mouse Pirate Captain. He could shift for 3, so that's why I run the 1-drop Mickey. 4/4 quest for 2. I like the 4/4 stat line. It could really target a lot of things in the meta, like Daisy Ducks. Could trade well with the 4 health characters too if they want to get rid of Mickey Mouse. Really good against like the Amethyst cards as well. And then the effect doesn't really matter in this case. Whenever this character quest, chosen pirate character gains +2 strength, and that character also takes no damage from challenges this turn. But it's mostly there as a turn 3 shift line, just like Robin Hood, that could sing A Whole New World. And it could trade pretty solid body for 4/4 and quest for 2. So your opponent might have to trade in 2 cards just to get rid of Mickey. Another card from Azurite Sea is going to be Gantu. Gantu is just like kind of there just for your opponent to answer. It's out of the Medusa range, which is really nice, and out of like a lot of the other strength character range. But being able to just quest for 4 if it sticks for 1 turn, that's really solid. And I think you could justify it being a turn 5. A turn 6, I think it might be too late. And also against certain matchups, you could just ink it as well. If you're going against like Amethyst Steel or something like that that plays like Smash or some hard removal that you think they might have, then you could always ink it. But if your opponent has a difficult way to remove it, like if you're playing against the tempo, if you're tempoing out and your opponent just is gassing out and you're getting rid of like their field and they only have like 1 or 2 cards in their hand, like say like Amber Steel aggro, then you might be able to get away with this if you take control of the board state. So it really just depends on just a number of factors. But he's there to kind of close out games. The 4 lore is crazy. And moving on to one of the only few songs I run in this deck, Whole New World. I only run it as 2 because there's certain matchups that you don't want to wheel. Obviously like Ruby Sapphire, you don't want to give cards to them. Ruby Amethyst is decent, especially because they could draw a lot now with Genie and Rabbits and Friends and stuff, but you don't want to give aggro decks a whole new hand or Ruby Sapphire a whole new hand. But if you're in a position where it'll benefit you for sure, maybe even against other Amber Steel wheel decks, if you need answers, if you need to search for stuff, if you need to close out games, it's good to kind of just wheel and then gamble, right? A little bit of gambling. Then I ran 1 Maui Shark. He's there as a backup lore, alternative lore gain. 7/5 evasive. When this character challenges another character, you may return an action card from your discard pile to your hand. I think I play a good amount of actions, maybe 16 to 18. So if he pretty much is able to stick and challenge, you're able to see your whole discard pile full of stuff. So it's kind of like a toolboxy card that synergizes with Maui. And when you play an action, you gain a lore. So I like that. You could play 2 if you want, but I think this card is best in like a Ruby Sapphire build where you could just ramp up and play it like on turn 5 or something. But it is definitely there because the potential of that card is really strong. Then I ran 3 Pirate's Life, another good card that I think is really, really important in this meta. Each opponent loses 2 lore, you gain 2 lore. So there's a way for you to catch up against games that just come really close. There's certain games that are just neck and neck, 16, 17 lore, and then they could win the next turn. All you got to do is just play Pirate's Life, and that could just buy your next turn, get you in a Goofy, so you could Super Goof for win, or get you some extra lore with Calhoun, stuff like that. Like it allows you to potentially just shift the game in your favor, and being able to do a 4 lore shift difference is insane. So that's why I run Pirate's Life. And then to top it all off, one of my favorite cards in the game. Wish I had a little bit more support. Like a shift 4 maybe. I think a shift 4 would be nice, right? Play Aladdin on turn 3 and then shift turn 4 or check some of those aggro decks. But no, I think it's fine. I just wish it was a little bit more seen in the meta because the stats are great. 5/5, really sticky. Your opponent may not want to quest. It's similar to like how Tinkerbell Giant Fairy is in the meta. Like it kind of just stops your opponent from questing, because if they do, then you could just jump way ahead in lore and you still get to keep Aladdin. Now they have to focus on getting rid of Aladdin next turn. and it just creates a little bit of weird, awkward play lines for your opponent. But it's a card that people don't expect a lot too, but obviously if they see you shift Aladdin on turn 3, I mean, you'd probably play Aladdin on turn 4, and then you kind of scare them into the big shift Aladdin. So there's a couple mind games that you could play, especially in this deck, where you could just play so many cards that gain lore out of nowhere, and your opponent has to constantly think about, okay, do I want my characters to be exerted because of Calhoun? Do I even want characters exerted in general because of Super Goofy? Or stuff like Pirate's Life, I gotta be questing because then they're just gonna drain my lore. Or even the Aladdin shift. Like, there's a lot of factors in this deck which I really like, that's forces your opponent to make awkward decisions and play lines and stuff that they just don't expect. So that's really what the deck is here for. Like, if you like playing decks that, you know, catch people off guard, this is very thematic, you know, while removing the board and gaining lore at the same time, and also having your opponent lose lore with stuff like Aladdin and Pirate's Life. I think it hasn't really been explored enough yet in the meta, but I think it has potential to win some of those smaller scale events. Not necessarily Continentals at all, because I just think the level of this is just like a tier 3 or 2.5 type of thing. But in terms of practicing this deck, getting your people caught off guard, which is the main thing, and having your opponent not know how to play against it is really what you could exploit with. So it's great for that if you want to do side events or set champs that are coming up right around the corner. But yeah, this is a rogue deck. This is something fun. I think a lot of people will enjoy this. Lore gain and lore drain. I think I have one more video coming out before Continentals. I got a lot of stuff planned while I'm actually at the event. Me and my wife will be going there in Anaheim. So if you guys see me, say what's up. Let's take a picture, shout it out and everything. And then if you do follow my channel, subscribe, because I am doing a 1,000 subscriber giveaway. Once I hit 1K subs, I'll be handing out 2 Illuminators Troves, as well as a Chapter 1 Target bundle that has a bunch of packs in there from set 1. So looking forward to that. Stay tuned for the next video. Thank you guys for your support. See you in the next one.